tried everything under the sun. And I truly think you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't try this first before you got surgery. And I wish that I came across this before I got surgery, because I truly think about myself not getting surgery if I were to find this before.
Welcome to today's episode. This might be one of my favorites. Hearing that quick clip from our podcast makes me feel both upset, heartbroken, angry, but also redemptive and grateful that we were able to share this story. One that starts with an unnecessary back surgery, a failed one, and regret, but also ends in a really awesome way in which, Zack did find complete healing through the Limitless Program. Hearing how in this podcast, surgery, injections, pills, traditional PT, chiropractic, doctor's appointments, none of those things work for Zack, but our Limitless Program did, is a testament to the challenges that you might be facing, many of us face, but also the true redeeming power of a holistic rehab program like ours. So if you are struggling with back pain or sciatica, or frustrated with pills, injections, surgeries, or other treatments that just are not helping you live the life that you want to, and you want some long-term results, you're definitely going to want to listen to this. We're going to dive in on movement, strength, training, mindset, rehab, all the tools that you'll need to transform your body and overcome your pain so that you can live the life that you deserve. Zack, thanks for joining, man. I'm particularly excited to chat with you today because, we get a lot of people who come in and they avoid a back surgery. And recently it seemed like we've had a lot of people coming in asking, hey, can I do the Whealth program if I've already had back surgery? So I really wanted to bring you in the conversation. I'm going to pull up a piece that you shared with me. So what are we looking at here, Zack?
Pretty much that's, I think, a day after I got my surgery done, and was just in a lot of pain, and definitely got a photo of what was going on.
Yeah, you had to go through the archives of that. So yeah, I'll pull up the MRI, but you had 3 bulging discs. It looked like L5S1, L4, L5, and then L3, L4. I think all 3 of them were 6 millimeters. You opted for a microdiscectomy. How long ago was that you had that back surgery?
I had my surgery done April 1st, 2021.
I will pull up the MRI as well. So you got operated on, did a microdiscectomy because of these 3, right? You have the 5S1, 4-5, and then L3, L4. So in 2021, and how old are you now, Zack?
I'm 27 now.
Okay, cool. 27. Long story short, and I'll let you kind of jump into it, but you joined the Whealth Limitless Program about a year ago because you still were having really severe sciatic pain and back pain. Rumor has it you're doing a lot better. Why don't we just take a quick 30-second summary of how you're doing, and then I do want to dive into like how you herniated the disc, how all that stuff happened, and how we got here. How are you doing now?
Sure, I'm doing great now. Definitely have a lot more strength built up. Really, just the main thing that I'm excited about is I've been able to return to pretty much all activities that I once was not able to do for a period of time.
Wow.
Everyone kind of struggling with these type of injuries can probably attest to something along the lines in their life. And so I've just been really excited and almost just feel like I have a new lease on life, overcoming, something that can be pretty dark at the same time.
For you, what were some of the darkest parts of the recovery, or even before you started, I guess, the recovery? What has been dark about this experience for you?
I think just the first onset of the pain, and not knowing what it is, and, kind of just being fearful of, hey, is this worse than, I think it is, or, what is this pain, and how can I fix it? And I think, ultimately when you get to the point of, wow, this is really impacting, the decisions I'm making to, go out and do activities, can be a really dark spot. And, ultimately led me to getting surgery, because I wasn't getting any results with anything that I was trying.
Right.
And that kind of started another year of, rehab and, trying to get healthy again, but still wasn't feeling the best. So that was definitely dark.
Yeah. And so you graduated, I know you graduated CU Boulder, and then did you play football at Boulder, or were you playing football in high school?
Just in high school. Yeah.
And then it was after graduating from high school, was that when you started experiencing back pain, or when did you actually kind of start experiencing back pain and then knowing like something is kind of quote wrong with me?
Sure. I had a pretty bad sciatic flare up like in high school while I was playing football, to the
Wow.
point where I almost couldn't really bend over. My SI joint was just very, very inflamed and just felt really, really bad. And so somehow I was able to get healthy again. I don't know how I did, and really
Hmm.
didn't have too much back problems up until I graduated from college and started working. And I was lifting and just started having like severe pain down my leg, and then realized what was going on.
Yeah, man, that's tough. You and I dealt with back pain kind of at the same time. I just turned 28. So I think, so you graduated 2020?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So I graduated 2019. I met my fiance at Boulder. So my sister went to Boulder, friends there, very fond of that school. So yeah, I mean, I dealt with back pain, L5S1 herniation when I was a junior in college. Definitely don't wish that upon anyone. So graduating, you're going into commercial real estate work, and then that's when you started really experiencing, the sciatica that was debilitating. Is that correct?
Yeah, I started, obviously I'm working really long hours sitting at a desk and doing
Yeah.
everything I can to get my business off the ground. And, I'm at the same time dealing with, shooting pain down my leg. And ultimately what I ended up starting to do was just take about, 3 to 4 Advil in the morning, 3 to 4 Advil kind of in the afternoon, just to kind of take the edge off. Um, and it was a really, really tough time for me, at the same time. So, that was kind of, what I did to deal with the pain. And I didn't really have anything else to do because I was afraid to really move around or, even stretch would maybe hurt my back at that time too.
Right. And how did that feel like at that age? I won't say shoveling pills in your mouth, but like, I mean, you could say, 8 pills, 8 Advil a day just to try to get through the day, being in a young, healthy body. I mean, I've seen pictures of you back then too, even, you had a good amount of muscle mass on you. You come from being a really good football player. So I know you deem yourself as an athlete. How did that feel being in that mindset mentally? Like, wow, I have to take Advil to try to get through the day. I have this horrible pain that goes down my leg, almost feels invisible to other people, right? Looking around, no one else your age is dealing with this. How did that feel for you?
I think that was like, part of the darkness of this injury is that like every single person's reaction was, you're 23 years old, you're 22 years old, you shouldn't be having this type of back pain, like what's going on with you? Oh, stretch and do the classic,
Mm-hmm.
PT stuff and you should be fine. And it actually took over a year for the doctor to even approve for me to have surgery because I was so young and because they want
Wow.
to go through the entire process before they, put you under the knife at that age. But
Mm-hmm.
at the same time, I wasn't getting any feedback that was good enough to change my situation. And that's really where I was at.
Yeah. So you're trying to get the business off and running. I know you mentioned like you became depressed and had to abandon the hobbies, um, identities being stripped away from you. At that time, what were you not able to do, and what were you able to do? Like, what did life look like for those few years that you were with horrible pain before the surgery? Because I know after the surgery too, we dealt with some dark times as well.
Sure. I mean, kind of as a whole, I went from playing, golf 2 to 3 times a week, surfing, every morning or every other morning, other just generally, normal activities that a lot of people my age do, to almost being able to doing none of them other than maybe walking, but maybe for not that far of a distance. Um,
Right.
and to the point of almost saying, hey, I can't almost sit in my chair for more than like an hour and a half, 2 hours. And so even at the workplace, I wasn't able to sit down and focus on my job because just being in my chair would have my back and hips, kind of freaking out. And so I wasn't able to even really get true quality work out of my job.
Yeah.
And so I couldn't work out to get a mental clarity or any type of release. And then also I'm suffering at work and taking Advil just to get through the day at a lower quality standard than I'm, knowing I can put out.
Yeah.
So terrible.
Gosh, man, I'm sorry. What were you doing? Because I know you're seeing chiropractors and physical therapy, and you said you were very adherent to it, right? And it took you a while to even get approved for surgery, because everyone's saying like, oh, Zach, you're so young, you shouldn't be dealing with this. Like, we don't want to cut you open. You shouldn't be having this pain or this level of pain. Like, kind of almost treating you like just this mystery case. Like, you're too young to help out with surgery, but PT and chiro is not working. How long were you doing physical therapy and seeing chiropractors? Like, what did your experience with that look like?
Yeah, I started, obviously, I went to the doctor and said, hey, I have, pretty bad pain. And they said, hey, you need to do 6 months of physical therapy at a pretty, large brand shop. And so I
Mm-hmm.
started doing that. And then I also started seeing a chiropractor at the same time, trying to, align anything I could possibly have at a regular basis.
Right.
Just the overall cost of that was just really daunting at the same time, spending probably anywhere from $1,000 to $1,200 on my back per month, all in,
Wow. Wow.
just to get by and try to have some type of sliver of hope. And then on top of that, I also had cortisone shots, which really didn't even have any impact, or maybe an impact for more than 24 hours, and those are about $1,200 a pop.
How many did you have?
I had like two or three, but I
Okay.
realized they really didn't have too much of an impact. And when I hear people
Right.
getting them, I'm like, hey, I really don't know if that's the best option, or will really even help you in that
Mm-hmm.
situation. So just the whole gauntlet of all that stuff, and just kind of feeling like a bag in the wind and not really getting anywhere and suffering through the entire time, it's tough.
I know it's so frustrating too. Like, you feel like you're doing everything, chiropractor and PT. I would say the difference in, what the outcomes are for chiropractic adjustments and physically getting down and doing physical therapy. I would say our program aligns more so with physical therapy. But in that sense, clearly what you were doing at physical therapy was not great physical therapy, right? And we'll talk about the differences with Whealth, and how it's so much more helpful for you. But you go through this bout where you're so desperate for relief, and then you've consulted some of the top surgeons in Orange County, but their response was that you were just too young for back surgery and that it couldn't be that bad, right?
Well, more or less, yeah. And I mean,
Okay.
I had to go through almost a year of, going to them and checkups and kind of
Mm,
progression updates and whatever you may call it. So yeah, that was the story.
okay. So then prescribe more PT after that, right? And then, kind of again back through the same thing, trying PT. I know you did a lot of PT before Wealth. What did that PT look like? Because I know you said you were adherent, but the condition worsened. You just continued to have intensifying pain that was limiting everything. Like, what were they having you do at PT that you felt like was not effective?
Well, I think, like, looking back on it, it's the classic routines, right? The
Yeah,
clamshells, the band
sure.
work, the glute stuff. And I think that stuff is good, more or less. I don't think it's bad exercises, but looking back, the problem was there's no engagement of the lower core. There's no education of the lower core. There's no hip movement in the right, correct way. There's no addressing the entire body and thinking about your neck
Hmm.
and your shoulders and how your breathing is when you're addressing your lower back and your hips. How are your
Right.
ankles and your knees doing? And so, kind of understanding and educating yourself on that stuff. And now looking back at what I was given, it makes me somewhat frustrated, because if I did catch the right education, or
Hmm.
fundamentals of this stuff that we're talking about,
Hmm.
who knows if I would have gotten the surgery or not, right? And that's just how it worked out for me.
Yeah. I think, yeah, you got the surgery. Spoiler alert, we started the conversation with that, right? So what made you finally, like, what was, how long was that decision in the making with finally deciding to go for the microdiscectomy? Were you apprehensive towards that? Did you have people in your corner supportive about it? Why do we end up here?
I think, at the end of the day, my friends and family around me just saw how bad I was suffering, and
Hmm.
really didn't see any end to a means of me doing anything else other than this after the time that we've been dealing with it. And so,
Hmm.
my dad did have a spinal fusion at 21. He exploded his disc playing football, and so he had
Oh, wow.
surgery, but he's been good, for the rest of his life. He actually just had a cleanup surgery.
Okay.
He's now interested in doing Wealth as well, because he's seen my results. So
Let's go. Hey, let's bring your dad in. That'd be epic, man.
exactly. Yeah, no.
For
So
sure.
already my aunt as well. She has a few impacted discs, and asking me what to do. So it's something that's very very common with a lot of people, but not a very common route to get healthy again. So
I'm sure that's a testament to, how you're feeling and what you're embodying and that sort of thing. Cause I know when I went through my recovery as well, like people just started to see how I just went from not being able to get out of bed and just in pain all the time and just being mad. Like I remember just being so pissed off and having such a short fuse with my mom. Just my mom would say like one little thing around the house and just trying to be helpful, and I would blow up. And I remember one time she's like, what do you want me to do? And I was just like, I just want this fucking pain to go away. And it's just like taking that stuff out on other people, not, yeah, just, all the emotions, right? And I'm sure you can kind of resonate with that. But then to go from that dark experience of a year of just, especially when you like know you're an athlete and you're a nice guy and people love to be around you, and then you're not like that at all anymore and you're depressed and you're not doing what you know that you can be doing, it's horrible. But the fact that parents and aunt are seeing that, I mean, I guess what have they seen from you that's inspiring to them?
well, I just think like, overall, like, my group of friends and family, went from me kind of being almost like a cripple or like kind of on the sidelines for almost everything to all of a sudden doing all the things I love to do again. And
Wow.
hearing me talk about, hey, when they ask how my back's doing, it's not like, oh, it's okay. It's no, I'm actually doing really good. I feel good now. I'm getting better.
Mm-hmm.
And just that like excitement and joy they can tell, is really like a real thing that you can't just like make up or pretend is happening. So,
Sure.
and then yeah, the body as well is like gained a lot of good weight and feeling healthier from a movement perspective. So it just helps me make me look fuller and more vibrant
Yeah,
and healthier and just better, right? Better human being.
for sure. i'm I'm so happy to hear that, man. That's incredible. So you had that surgery. Was the surgery deemed a success? What did that post-op experience look like? So now we've had surgery, I think, and then for people who are listening, how many months after surgery did we start Limitless? Because we're getting there. We're getting to how you started.
So had my surgery, and that was kind of earth shattering. The doctor told me you'd be good around 2 weeks, a month. And the first week I was just on my back. It felt like I had like a balloon sized chunk just like opened up, and I just couldn't do anything. I couldn't put my socks on, couldn't tie my shoes.
Mm-hmm.
It was just tough to get dressed. And that was really eye opening, realizing like how far down the ladder I am and how far I'm going to have to fight back to get to a normal level. And so I had hope at least, hey, I'll recover from the surgery. I'll calm down. My body will get acclimated and, hopefully I'll start feeling better. Right. And, 2, 3 months after the surgery, you're trying to navigate, hey, what can I do? What I can't do?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very tough mental place as well, because you don't want to re-hurt yourself. You're afraid to do a lot of things in the gym that you normally did, but you
Right.
got healthy again. So you want to make sure you're not hurting anything. And so I went through this, I call it a purgatory time, where it's like I felt almost as worse as I did before the surgery, or maybe even worse because I got surgery. And I was going to the gym and I was trying to do cardio and I was trying to stretch, but nothing was having a lasting effect. And I didn't know what to do. I was like, what can I do now? I used to bench, I used to do all these weights. And, when you have this surgery, you really don't know where to start. And that's where I was. And I was having a ton of pain still. And I was just like, kind of out of options. I was willing to do anything, literally anything,
Right.
to get this figured out.
Well, and I think that's tough because you got the microdiscectomy, you got the back surgery because PT, chiro, medication, injections, everything that you were willing to do beforehand didn't work. So then you get the surgery, and then it's like, okay, wait, so now I've just had the surgery, but I still have those same options for after the surgery, which didn't work before the surgery. So how can I be confident moving forward? Like, what am I going to do? You're still lost, right?
Exactly. I was asking questions. I was trying to like find stretching programs. I was trying to do anything I could possibly do just to get better. And
Yeah.
that's where I really started to get scared, because I was like, I've now been doing this for about 2.5 years roughly. It's like part of
Mm-hmm.
my identity. I'm having serious atrophy of my body. I just got surgery and I haven't recovered from it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to get scared in terms of like, hey, it's hard for me to work. What's going on with my life, pretty much.
So you say 2.5 years front to back, like including before surgery, after surgery, you
Roughly,
dealt with
yeah.
sciatic nerve pain, back pain, SI joint pain, 2.5 years.
Advil days, yeah, 2.5 years.
Wow. Okay. 2.5 years of Advil days. That's how you mark it.
Hmm.
Hitting the liver for 2.5 years.
God bless.
That's one strong liver you got. Wow. And then, so when you're feeling like that after surgery, did you go back and get follow-ups with the doctor? Like, how was that relationship? You're like, hey doc, I still feel like shit. Like, what am I supposed to do? Or what was that?
I mean, like it was physical therapy recommendations, and I went to it, but it was maybe 2 or 3 times a week. And if you're only working on something 2 to 3 times a week for
Mm,
an hour, you're really not going to get the results that you need if you're not doing a bunch of other good stuff on the back end.
yeah.
So it kind of just put me in the same position of, wow, is this like really all that's available? Like, can I only do these PT exercises? Can I only like stretch? Is this my
Hmm.
life now? Pretty much. Am I going to be like this forever?
So, spoiler alert, we're not like that anymore. We've got you out of the hole, which I'm so stoked about. So, clearly, I think we've painted the picture. Zach was in a ton of pain, surgery, nothing worked. Truly, nothing worked for you up until this point. I can say Whealth was monumental in helping you get your life back. How did you come across Whealth?
I started doing a lot of research into programs that are promoted on social media, whether it was like a strength, based workout routine, or maybe a yoga type work routine, or just something where I could have a box of tools and I could actually go to work every day and work on something and try to make improvement instead of just me doing my own thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then our good friend Alejandro Wiley said, "Hey, my friend Cam here, overcame the same injury you did. You should try out what he did." And ultimately, I tried out the course, and at first glance, I was kind of overwhelmed. I was like, "Wow, this is kind of a lot." But when you break it down week by week,
Yeah.
like how it is, and you just focus on, hey, just focus on this one week of exercises and master these exercises, or do as much as you can. And then when you feel good enough, move on to the next. And those levels of improvement was the first sliver of joy I had in my injury. And I never thought it would like be such an important thing in my life, but like having that instruction and just the specific exercises that they're telling you to do, for certain parts of your body that are all connected, really make the difference. Like, especially if you do it every single day, you'll start to see huge improvements from where you were starting to just wherever you're at in the program. You'll start to see a big difference, and it's life changing.
Man, that's so cool. Yeah, one of the things that stuck out, because yeah, our buddy Ale, I went to college with him, and he told me that you were going to be booking a call, and obviously I encourage you to join the program because I've seen what it's done for people. So I had no doubt that you would be successful. But again, like you do open up the course, and you're like, whoa, it seems like a lot of videos. There's 56 individual days that you could do the program. There's 56 workouts at 30 minutes. It is a course. It's a lot of work, right? And I think that can be overwhelming. But you're like, all right, well, I can guarantee you, like, the work, it's got to get done. It's going to make you enjoy your life so much better, like unimaginable. I mean, this is why I have you on the podcast to try to even explain how much better your life is now because you did that work. But in the grand scheme of things, what I see with people is like, going through the program, setting aside 30, 40 minutes a day to this program if you're in pain is so much easier than living with pain indefinitely and indefinitely. But, one of the things that stuck out to me was, you're like, progress was slow and humbling, but actually offered the first glimmer of hope in years. Do you remember, like, did you have any light bulb moments of like, wow, I feel hopeful, or was it something that was slowly building, or do you have any early recollections of where your hope was starting to be restored as you were tracing through the program?
I think like for the first like 2 or 3 weeks when I was getting the original just kind of like foundational information going, and I
Mm-hmm.
started moving my hips in a certain way and engaging my lower core and doing exercises that were firing up my hamstrings, my glutes, and also
Yeah.
my lower core. and I started to see somewhat of an improvement. I felt better. And I think like a huge thing for me, instead of just, waking up and suffering all day and then maybe doing some physical activity to feel better, I do it first thing in the morning and address like how I'm feeling in the morning, and just get my body feeling good so I can enjoy the entire day with the progress and the work I put in, and then wake up and do it again. It just helps me have somewhat of a quality of life at that point, right? Just feeling as good as I possibly can for as long as I possibly can, instead of for maybe an hour or two at the end of the day.
Right. And when did you stop taking Advil pain medication? Was that during the program, or was that before you started the program?
It was in the middle of the program. Like, it was such a hard like mental block for me, because I was like, how am I going to get through the day like without this? And I was like, I need to stop taking this. And I knew it was bad for me. And I just eventually got to a point where my glutes and my hamstrings and kind of my lower core got strong enough where it wasn't having my SI joint hurt and feel achy in my chair. And that's really like when my coworkers and my bosses like started to see a difference, where it was like, wow, I can sit in my chair for, 5, 6 hours for the day and really like get a lot of work done and not be getting up and stretching and using a workout ball to get a knot out or something. Like, I could just be a normal person. And it's really impacted my work in a positive way as well. I mean, my input has gone back up to where it should be. And, obviously there was impacting factors, but like, it just makes you more thankful for being able to feel good instead of just stuck in that position.
Wow. That is so cool, man. Getting off meds. Fortunately that was not something I didn't get into that other hole, right? And just having that psychology of dependence and wondering like, oh, well, what's my life going to look like without these things? I need these things to get through the day. And I think there's a lot of people out there right now currently who are addicted to meds or have a massive dependency on medication, adjustments, acupuncture, like icing, heating, like anything that just is maybe temporary relief for most situations. I think a lot of people are dependent on that. And how did it sounds like you broke that dependency because your SI joint was not hurting and nerve pain and pain was down. And you got to that point because you did the workout every single morning. You followed it, you listened, you started to learn about your body, and body parts started to get strong that you hadn't been able to hit in years because of the pain. So the reason why you broke that dependency is because of the work and strength that you own, and I think it's so tough for people to see, but the dependency towards medication and a lot of these things for most people with chronic pain, chronic musculoskeletal stuff, is because they're not really having the right inputs that leave their body in like a positive, strong homeostasis. So they need those things to balance it out. But then by trying to balance it out or just manage pain, it's like, man, your threshold gets worse and worse and worse. And before you know it, you're just using those things to have any level of like almost normality. But if you really take a step back, you're like, man, I'm not even like half the person or a tenth of the person that I used to be. But now it's just like I'm so locked in on what I have to try to take to feel better.
Well, absolutely. And I think, when you're going through that stuff, the pain level and like the pain receptors are screaming, and you have an injury that your mind has been protecting.
Yeah.
And working your way back into doing any type of strength enhancement workout that's not just a stretch can be super scary. But I think people don't realize, that your SI joint or your hip or your lower back is screaming, not because it's tight, but because it's dying for some type of strength to be created in there. And
Yeah.
that's
Some sort of blood flow, some sort of circulation, some sort of engagement.
itself to hold, what needs to be in place there. And once I started getting some type of strength in the right areas, that was what really took all my pain away. I realized I didn't have strength in the right areas, even though I
Wow.
went to PT for so long. But, the lower core, the hamstrings, the glutes, really getting them going the right way literally solved my pain. And I think it's probably would go for a lot of people too, because mine was really, really bad. So
Yeah. I just want to plug this right now. The Limitless program, lifetime access, was cheaper than 1 month of, the PT that you were doing every single month for a year, cheaper than an injection. Like, yeah. Anyways, it's And then top surgeon in LA, or you say OC?
It was in Beverly Hills, actually. It was like a
Okay.
really schwanky doctor, and they did their job. At the end of the
For
day,
sure.
like, they did their job, but it's more of like, what are the underlying issues? Like,
Mm-hmm.
your
Mm-hmm.
glutes and hamstrings are not going to be strong if you just sit on the couch and like ice your back every single day after surgery. So
Yeah. Yeah. Like the rest, ice, compression, elevation. Like, we don't need to do that 3.5 years or 2.5 years after the herniation. Like, guys, that is so beyond the acute thing. We got to get some movement in there. But I think what you just said it highlights a really good point. People are fearful when they have this level of pain. They're very fearful. Like, this is why people call in all the time to me before signing up for the program. And that's why I want to do these podcasts and share, because a lot of times people are just calling in, almost expressing that they're fearful and like, hey, I've seen all these great things on the website. I've seen Zack's story now. I've seen MRIs go and the disc reabsorbs. I've seen things that you guys are showing. Is it really true? Can I really be helped? Pain can cause such a fear response. So how did you start to break that fear? Or was it almost like a blind faith? Or like, how did you kind of navigate through that?
well, I think it was like a trust of you guys in the program as well. I think, coming from people that have had the same injury and are now healthy now is really the biggest track record you could have. Like, it's like, look
Mm-hmm.
at me, right? Like, I'm healthy now. I'm moving well. You guys are showing videos of optimal health, in my opinion, right? And so I'm like, hey, if they can overcome this and they use these tools, like, why don't I try their program instead of my own? And
I love it.
when I started getting more and more strength and kind of realizing, like, okay, what they're teaching is true and does work, it almost became addicting because you keep getting better and better to the point of like, hey, I need to keep moving on. I need to keep advancing. Otherwise, I'm going to stay in the same position I'm in right now. And I finally
Mm-hmm.
have the rings on the ladder to climb up. And so
Oh, that's awesome.
don't lose that. Right. And so that was
Yeah.
when I got confident in what was going on with this program.
I love that, man. I bought Andrew's program when I was in college, just like you, except I started the program 6 years before you, 5 years before you. I literally started in your exact shoes, except I just didn't have a back surgery, but same turmoil, mentally, physically, all of that sort of thing. And the same thing with me. I saw Andrew's story. In fact, it was like the first person I had ever seen who had a disc herniation and sciatica, and was talking and relating to how painful and crappy that experience was, and then overcoming it, looked jacked and looked healthy, and was like getting back to lifting, or was lifting at the time. And so I bought the program like that. Seriously, I did, because I didn't really even know what I was getting into, to be honest. I don't even remember knowing like what the details of the program were, but I was like, I want that result, so I'm going to do it. And kind of like you, started the program and was like, wow, this is a lot. Like, this is going to be a lot of work. And it took months for me to do the program completely, like probably 3-4 months to become completely pain-free. I haven't had sciatica now for 6.5 years. Like, that thing that my chiro and PT told me I'd be dealing with for the rest of my life, it's gone. But I think that's so important too, that you're highlighting. Like you just said, if they've done it, why can't I? I wish more people thought like that. I hope more people think like that, because look, there's so many people out there, and statistically speaking, based off of how the system is organized, right? Like, people get horrible results, like with a lot of injuries, because I think there's a lot of not great practices out there to help people. So then statistically speaking, you look out and you're like, well, statistically, like, I'm not going to get better. It's like, well, yeah, if you want to compare yourself to people who are doing things that, maybe they're not willing to do that you would, like maybe some of these people that you're comparing yourself to wouldn't be willing to put in months of work, or don't want that result, or maybe they do, but maybe they're doing the wrong things. So it's not fair to put yourself in that bucket of like, hey, I'm never going to get better because a lot of other people don't get better. Instead, you have to look at the successful people out there and be like, what have they done? Are they really any more special than I am? Like, sure, our genetic makeup is different, but the difference, Zach, is just sticking it out, really. It's like, and you stuck it out, and you got through it. Maybe someone else picked up some skills faster than you. Maybe their herniations were, smaller, and maybe they had a little bit less stuff to work on. And maybe some people didn't have back surgery. But also on the other side of the coin, we have members with fusions. We have had members with 50 back surgeries. We've had a member who fell 75 feet off a cliff, broke his femur, broke his back, got back surgery, and went through the program. So there's always someone like in a gnarly position. There's other people who have it better. Doesn't really matter. We just got to kind of like collectively pool and be like, hey, what are these successful people doing and how are they overcoming? So I love that you said, if they can do it, I can as well.
Well, and a really good point too to that is like you don't need to become some, crazy jacked, awesome looking, amazing healthy person. But there's like so many ways of achieving your own version of this that is going to be comfortable for you. Like
Mm-hmm.
even if you don't get in amazing shape, you're going to be hitting the fundamentals of what's going to be making you feel better. And over time, you're going to know what you need to be doing in the gym or every single week to keep feeling good. And it'll be black or white, and it's really a
Yeah.
choice.
I remember one of our members signed up 2 years ago and she was talking about, her name's Sarah. I've had her on the podcast and she was talking about how she was intimidated. Like, okay, I saw that Andrew and Cameron have gone through disc herniations. I see all these members, they look fit. She's like, well, I don't see myself as strong. It's like, we've been doing this for a while and post injury for a while, but we've been there, right? And so I think comparison can be good if it fires you up and gives you the right motivation, but also you got to be careful about who you're comparing with injury. You can use that as inspiration, but your goals, your lifestyle might not be the same thing. Like everyone can absolutely live a better life for themselves, absolutely feel better, clean up the joint pain, the muscle pain, sciatica. It just comes down to like, hey, where am I at with my life? And like, how do I just get a little bit better and be realistic with myself? But if you're going to compare yourself to someone who's way further along and be like, well, I can never live the life that they want, that they are. It's like, yeah, but you might not even want to, but you can get better for yourself. And then, I'm sure like you, a year later, you now are like in a situation where you honestly weren't even sure you'd be in. And now you have even greater goals.
Yeah, I mean, like I think everyone's like thought of it in the beginning, and my thought of it when I started was like, okay, just to start, let's just try to be able to get to a place where I could start doing activities again and just feeling a little bit better. That's all I cared about. I didn't need to be jacked, didn't need to do anything. That was kind of a gut check too in the gym sometimes
Mm,
because you're used to benching and squatting and doing all these big lifts to, doing more of the fundamental groundwork of, what we're trying to do in the beginning of the program. And
sure.
it's something that, you also kind of have to look in the face and say, hey, if I want to be able to do those things again, earn it first and get it done here, to start out. And it's
Yeah.
really not as long as you think, but it's also like so eye opening to be like, wow, I was almost doing probably everything wrong lifting wise after really learning how to do it correct. Because I played football for 4 years, and
Right.
they taught us all this stuff, and just seeing how I was taught how to squat and my back positioning, is very eye opening to where, I know how it should be done now. And it's pretty tough. But at the same time, like if you can get to a point where, that was my goal of just being able to do activities to now almost being in a point where, hey, I feel really, really good now. Let's start to incorporate more strength and try to actually build muscle mass.
Yeah.
And it's just that quick of a transformation where you just have to have that mindset, and all of a sudden you're in a really good spot, and it can happen.
For sure. Yeah, and I think you're at a new baseline, right? Because when you first started the program in complete desperation, you're like, hey, I see all these great things being done. Because I'll ask people on the phone, like, what are your goals with the program? And a lot of times people are like, I don't even care about lifting. Like, I want to lift up my kids. And I had someone yesterday be like, I just want to be able to stand up during the day and lose 10 pounds. And I have to put myself back in their shoes because, I see for them, like I saw for you a year ago, I was like, no, he's going to be doing even greater things than he can even comprehend on the phone. But also, I understand that when that is your current state, it's just like, what's like a realistic goal that I can get to? But you're going to get to that goal, not just without work, obviously. But now, Zach, when you started, you were like, I just kind of want to be able to get through the day. I want to go to work. I don't want to be depressed. I don't want to be shoveling Advil down. Like, and then you gain that back. And now, like, what are your goals now?
Well, it's like you could get that little bit of, foothold of momentum, be like, okay, I improved at least to this point. And kind of what I was saying earlier, it becomes addicting where it's like, hey, I just got a little bit better. I've been in pain for two
Mm-hmm.
and a half, 3 years. I finally have an ability to make it better. Like, why would you not want to do that? I'm sure if you presented that to 100 people, 99 out of 100 would take it,
Right.
because they're just in so much pain and they don't know what to do either at the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah.
So,
So just to kind of paint maybe a general timeline for what it looked like, a few weeks into the program, you were feeling pain reduction and hope. And
honestly,
then
3 weeks to a
it,
month.
and I think also too, like having something to anchor to in a tough time, you're like, oh, okay, like I'm used to working out. The first few weeks don't feel like I used to work out, but frankly, I'm not able to as well as I'd like to right now. So it's cool that you can at least see the program as like your workout to get out of pain. So a few weeks in, you're feeling some hope. I want to pull up this video. Check this bad boy out right here. So was this six months in? Look at that. What a ripper.
Yeah, roughly. This is when I started to kind of, at least try to start playing golf again, and ended up just like having better success with it than I thought I would, and just ended up starting to play normally again. Maybe not as
Wow.
sharp as I once did, but we'll get back there.
Okay. So we're not going to tag the Wealth program as better than before with golf just yet.
Well, I think no, my swing is probably just as agile, but I've just lost some of my touch, which I can build back. So
Okay.
yeah,
Hey, that's cool. So back to golfing. 6 months in, was that right? Because you said 6 months in, pain down 50% roughly.
yeah. I mean, I got to a point where I was like, hey, I'm feeling pretty good. Like my friends are
Yeah.
starting to play golf a lot, and like I think I can maybe try to get out there. And that was, a leap of faith within itself. But
Yeah. I was scared. Were you scared?
yeah, I was super scared. I mean, because like I know that swinging a club a few times can really flare up my back, and you get on a really strict routine with yourself when you're trying to get better. Of like, hey, I need to work out Monday. I need to hit the certain things I need to do. I need to go Tuesday to work this part of my body. Golfing in
Mm-hmm.
the middle of the week kind of throws that off. Is it going to throw
Mm-hmm.
off your QL and your hip and your back? But the more strength I built up, the more resiliency I built up, to the point of like I started to tell my friends and family, like, I think I'm like healed. Like, I think I sent you a text, messing around one time, like, I'm back. And because I just looked around, I was like, I've served twice this week. I've played golf twice this week. Like, I feel good. I sat in my chair, had a great, week of work. I'm like, I never thought I'd be back at that point, but all of a sudden I blinked my eyes and like I'm back, and I'm very, very thankful. And like, kind of just words can't describe that, honestly, because I feel like I have my life back again when I was living around this for a long time.
Dude. And you earned it. And that's so awesome. Yeah. I think that's one of the coolest things about what I do is, I connected with you, but having just a relationship with you, and I have like so many people that I just text on the side. I'm like, dude, I don't mind if you text me. In fact, like I take so much joy and satisfaction out of that, because it's like, hey, I was in your shoes and I've gotten through it, and it has literally changed my life to where this is what I do for like business. It's what I think about a lot. I want other people to be able to get out of pain with our solution. So that's been really cool to like just track along with you and see that. Did that feel weird initially when you were telling friends and family, like, I think I'm back, I think I'm healed?
Well, I didn't want to like jinx it, honestly.
I felt the same way.
You feel like something's gonna go wrong, but I feel like at a certain point you kind of got to own it and like put your mindset back in that place as well. As like, no, I'm not limited. I am healthy. Like I can do things. Like, I've told you multiple times when I've traveled with, my family and girlfriend, like not being able to pick up a suitcase and go up a set of stairs, like really being limited in just life activities. And then not even having to think about that stuff in the last few months has just been like such a burden of relief. Like, it's very, very helpful and awesome.
For sure. Well, yeah. And you told me that that was really cool to hear as well. You just came back from a pretty cool trip. Where was this?
That was in Croatia. We did
Oh,
a boat trip out there, my girlfriend and her family, and, just really built up a lot of strength and good work before, and was able to feel completely fine the entire trip with doing pretty much minimal to no work.
right. Being able to travel. And I know that last time you said you were traveling, you were not able to pick up the bags. in front of her father, and we were kind of laughing about that, or in
Yeah.
front of the family, because that's not a good feeling. You're like, I want to be able to pick up the bags for those who I love and family, and like hold the door open, do these gentlemanlike things. And I don't feel like a man right now because I have this invisible pain that no one else seems to understand because apparently I'm too young
Right.
for having this. So it's just like, all right, Zach just has this kind of weird thing. Cam has this weird thing. How did that feel going on your first vacation now with like this new body, new lease on life?
Yeah, it was actually really like fun too because they've seen me just struggle with this for so long, and then just being on the trip and then being like, wow, you actually look like you've actually filled out like the last couple months. Like, how much do you weigh right now? Like, and I put on 15 pounds. Like, I weigh 200 pounds and like don't have a belly. Like, feel good about it, and it's just like interesting to see like what their image in their mind of was of me, or like kind of how they saw me last. And I think back, it probably has been about 6 months. Like, they haven't even seen this new version of me yet, and so it was cool. It was kind of refreshing and a way to close the loop on a lot of that stuff because we're pretty competitive group of guys for sure.
Wow, that's awesome. And then, because 6 months a lot when how hard you've been working, but 6 months is a long time. And it's if you see yourself in the mirror every single day, or just, dealing with your mind every single day, or pain slowly climbing down, or your body slowly getting better over 6 months, you're like, am I really changing? But sometimes it's great to have people outside be like, dude, you look so different. You're like, wow, I am different, but I just haven't noticed that because I live inside this all day,
Yeah.
24/7, right?
It's true. It's very true. And it was like eye opening. It's like, okay, yeah, I have done a lot of work in the last 6 months. I have, started to see results that I'm happy about and like I want to hold on to for as long as I possibly can and keep working on it. So it's
Absolutely.
ever going thing too, as you know. It's not just a finish. It's always.
Yeah, I thought that's interesting too, because when I started the program, I was like, the goal, the finish line is like to become pain free. And I was like, spoiler, that's not true. I've had, and I'd love to talk about, if you've had any flare ups or anything that you're working through, because I think you've gotten so much better, but it's realistic for some people to have ups and downs. I know through when I was starting the program, I did have a few ups and downs. I was like, oh my gosh, am I getting worse? It's like, no, zoom out. Like, it's okay. Just kind of like the stock market. There's kind of pulses, ideally, in housing market, it's going to get better. It's not like every single day has to be better than the previous one. That's just kind of part of the situation. So, did you have any little, moments of doubt during the program, or just like, I don't want to do the program, or this is difficult?
Well, yeah, I mean, especially in the beginning when you're like first getting started, like maybe you get a good momentum of a couple weeks and you start to see some, good results. And then, life happens, right? Like you
Mm,
travel for, 3, 4 days, you go to Vegas, then all of a sudden you're turning around, you have, a wedding the next weekend. And, you're trying to put the work in, but you're not truly focused. And all of a sudden you can kind of be like, oh, I'm back to how I was kind of feeling when I started, or, I'm feeling okay. I feel a little bit better, but I don't feel as good as I do right now. And
right.
the most important times to it's okay to like spend like 2 weeks or 3 weeks on the same module. Honestly,
Sure.
really struggling. Like I think I did, week one for like two weeks, and then I did week two, week three, and then I think I went back to week one, week two, week three, week four, week five, just to
Hmm.
get my stuff going again. And that's obviously personal to how you're feeling and what you're doing, but that's
Yeah.
what I had to do. And um, I think that's a huge part of it because it's not going to be a straight line. It's just like
Right.
business or anything in life. It's going to go up and down, and the more you stay consistent with it, you're going to see those long periods of gain. And a lot of the times I go to the gym in the morning, I'm like, I don't feel good, right? I don't feel like my back's like, feeling awesome, and, the exercise are working and stuff, but I don't feel good today. And then by the time
Right.
I finish and do the work I need to do, I'm like, okay, at least I've done everything I could today. That's also a
Hmm.
huge mental, weight off your shoulders, at least for me. It's
Definitely.
like I've done everything I possibly could do today for like 2 hours in the gym, stretching, working out, cardio, whatever it is,
Yeah.
going to massage. Like I've done everything. So let's just work, let's just
I
focus
like
on
that.
what I can. So,
when you were first starting, how long did the workouts take you? Because I know some members are like 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 20 minutes.
Personally, and like I haven't even checked with anyone if that's like what I should be doing, but I always
Yeah, you didn't even use the coaching, which is cool.
I start with like 15 to 20 minutes of stair stepper just to get
Mhm.
my body warm and sweating. I go straight to the mat and start doing the workout warm up exercises and then the
Sure.
program. So I'd say about an hour, like with the
Okay.
cardio, 40 minutes if you weren't to do it without. I just think it helps to get your body warm and loose a little bit more. Um,
Absolutely.
but
So I mean, all in, right? And you're kind of throwing in some extra work from the program, an hour a day. I encourage people to do cardio if they can make the time, right? Not if you have the time. I mean, cardiovascular health is really important. When did you like? At what stage in the program did you kind of feel like, oh, I'm kind of back to like, or I'm back to lifting? I guess that's what I want to know because I'm sure there's a lot of fear around lifting. The beginning of Limitless feels for people who aren't in the program, like more rehabby, more mobility esque, right? And then it kind of gets into what feels like, oh, I'm doing a lifting workout routine. When did you kind of feel like you had that confidence, or how was that introduction into that?
it was interesting because like I think around like module 3 to 5 you start getting into a spot where it's like the program will say, hey, if you do have strength or if you do want to make it more hard, add
Yeah.
weight to it or do this. And I really beat it around the bush with that. I was like, I don't want to grab a weight and do an RDL.
Mm,
Like that's like my nightmare fuel. Like I can easily tweak my back. I'll feel like crap for 2 days. Like I'm just gonna do, my version of this and then like see how. And then I got to a point where I was like, okay, I'm feeling good. Like the weight is just another part of this. Like just trust them and like take the leap. And that's personal. Like however you're feeling. But once I started doing the weight, I was like, oh, this actually helps me. Like it's actually making the movement not easier but flow better because you actually have something pulling you down or working against
hmm
what you're trying to work. And then from there, I gained a lot of strength by doing that and being like, okay, now I'm at a new baseline. Now this is the new standard for myself. Like this is where I know I should be no matter what. And let's build off that. And that's been the most fun part of like working out again is like actually being able to get a pump, actually being able to like put on muscle mass again and being like, I don't even fear tweaking my back in the gym anymore.
hmm
I don't fear it at all. I'm cognizant of it and make sure I'm not doing stupid stuff, but I'm not like, oh, if I do this, am I going to be down for 2 days? Like none of that stuff anymore.
Right. That's awesome, man. So I think what was a really cool timestamp was just around a year, you realized that you were not thinking about pain and kind of realized like the back pain, the sciatica was gone, the stuff that was really holding you back, like almost having recognition that you weren't thinking about the pain anymore. Is that kind of the right timeline?
Fully. Yeah. Just full
Okay.
recognition of like, wow, things have changed now. Like it's just different. And I'm really kind of shocked and blown away. Cause like, I mean, to be honest, I never thought I'd be able to like really get my back to a place of like overall endurance. Like I think just going through the day or like going on a long walk or carrying a heavy bag, more than half a mile or something, like would really tax me. And now I'm like not even thinking about those things, which is really limiting you when you're going through your injury. So
So awesome, man. It sounds like cleared the depression, got off the pills, put back on 15 pounds of muscle, which is sweet. Body comp gains, out of pain, traveling with girlfriend, family, friends, playing golf. How far are you driving these days?
I hit a pretty long one the other day, probably 270 plus. I mean, like it caught a hill, but
Sure.
I can.
Hey, we'll take that hill. We'll throw that in the stats.
Yeah. So if I catch a sweet spot, it'll go good. But
Okay. Is golf your biggest hobby? What you like to do on the side of work?
I'd say surfing probably is the most, I would say, and
Okay.
that's really like that was cool too because I was so limited in my pop up as well because that back
Ah.
version and also bringing through your front leg. My left leg is my injured side, and so like your hip
Mm,
flexor and your strength when you plant down your front foot and having that all work together, like I'd fall a lot. And so now it's a lot better, and I've come from a lot better place of strength and foundation. So it's like really cool to see the bounce back there as well, and just feel better and be able to do it more and longer.
Gosh, dude, that's so cool. Did you start in April of 23?
Yeah.
April or May, right? So I know we had been working on getting this podcast and this story for a minute because you're a busy man. You're growing the real estate career. So, dude, thank you so much for hopping on. Is there any advice that you would give to someone who is currently, maybe contemplating back surgery or dealing with sciatica or injury and trying to navigate those waters that you have dealt with?
I think like the advice I give everyone, because I get asked a lot about back injuries and back pain, whether it just started happening or it's been going on for a year, is that I've tried everything under the sun. And I truly think you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you didn't try this first before you got surgery. And I wish that I came across this before I got surgery, because I truly think about myself not getting surgery if I were to find this before. And it truly is, something that you can use to get back. And I think a lot of programs and methods try to claim that, but I really haven't seen another one that's had significant, repeatable results. And if you are going through a rough patch or a small hiccup, you can go back to it and have confidence of like, hey, this is what I need to do to feel better again. And that's huge for me.
Right. Thank you for those words. It's cool, man. It's, we're coming up on our 4-year anniversary of Whealth.
Wow.
Andrew and Katie were part of a previous venture before that I worked at. So I feel like I've kind of been in this space for, 7 years, and I know they'd probably say 8, 9, 10 years. It's been hard work to build it up. And I think really we just try to focus on the individual story. And you've shed so much depth to this side of, post-surgery and that sort of thing. And I would also emphasize, I know you're sitting here being like, well, it would have been cool to find the program before, and, who would have known if I would have done surgery? And it's like, yeah, that's true. But also, there's ways in which you can kind of take your situation. I encourage people to do this, whether or not you've had surgery or you've had an injury or whatever. It's like, hey, this is just where we're at today, and we can't change any of the past. What good can we extract out of this? And for me, going through pain and having a horrible experience with my chiropractor who pissed me the F off, and I hated everything about that experience, got me so fired up to like do the program or go fight for myself, So I took that pain and frustration and all those things, and I channeled it into a good thing. I don't necessarily want to feel sciatica again, but also I'm so grateful I dealt with that for a full year, because it's everything after my life has changed, including talking to you and helping you go through this, right? So I'm sure you're only going to continue to rediscover moving forward, like with the new lease on life, like how much better it gets, dude. Because I remember a year after you were just starting.
No, yeah. I mean, I was in a helpless place where I was literally willing to do anything. And I think it's pretty eye-opening when you literally have nothing else to try, and you realize that if I don't get myself back to a good spot, I'm kind of going to wither away. I'm not going to be able to do, I'm almost dying in a certain way. I'm handicapping myself. I'm not able to do these things. And that's a dark place, but it's like also a really joyous place once you learn how to fix all of that stuff and where it's coming from, because then you can almost conquer that fear. So if it flared up again tomorrow, I'd know where to go, I'd know what to do, and I'd know how to fix it.
Yeah. And you have lifetime access to the program. I mean, I think that's really the beauty of it, right? It should be, and that's why we sell the program as lifetime access, because it should be that sort of thing to where you can keep coming back. You can go hit a Vegas trip with the boys, or you can go golf or whatever, and like get out of your element and be like, ooh, I got to get back in. Like my low back's a little stiff and this and that. We'll say one thing too, just, kind of word of advice. The more cognizant you become of how your body feels, I think you can be like, ooh, like even right now, if I'm sitting in this chair, I'm like, I don't really like sitting in this chair. If I kind of channel like how I've been sitting for an hour, but also on the other side, I'm like, dude, I'm fine, And I've realized, because going through this, I'm like, I love to move. Like my body needs to be fidgeting 24/7. So I'm always trying to do that. So then sometimes I'll be like, I don't feel as good. It's like, no, dude, you're almost sometimes too aware of how your body feels now to where like you can kind of sometimes missend signals. So I would say, be careful about that moving forward. Like if stuff pops up, because, stuff might pop up and I've had, one little QL flare up in past 6 years, which like kind of sidelined me for a few days and I couldn't walk. And the first thought was like, uh-oh, and it's like, no, dude, you're good. You're good. And it went away. I haven't had any nerve pain, but, I did have to almost be very cognizant of the voice that was coming in my head. Like, shoot, like, what did I just do? It's like, no, I think you're just really aware of how your body feels. And that's a great place to be in and utilize that to your advantage.
Well, yeah, it's a standard you set for yourself too, and I'm sure
Yeah.
me and you are pretty hard on ourselves and have a high standard, and so the more you learn, the more you're aware of, the more
Yes.
you're gonna be hard on yourself for. And I've learned to like give myself some release and break from that because
Hmm.
you hyper focus on it to the point of like I need to make this better, and it takes a lot of work, but
Sure.
still being a human, being able to sit in this chair and have a
Yeah. Yeah.
conversation is like why we do the work though, right?
Yes.
Maybe it's not the best position for our hips and back and legs, but we need to be normal people and do
Yeah.
stuff like this.
Yeah.
So that's what
You
it
don't,
is.
if you want to sit cross-legged on the ground, like you can do that, but also, dude, just enjoy the couch. Like I remember my chiro was telling me, don't ever sit on couches again. That's so bad for your back. Like, oh, by the way, throw on this back brace. It's like, no, what's bad for your back is not learning how to exercise it appropriately and safely and progressively, and then building up the tolerance. Like, it's so funny, man. Just sitting on a couch or in a chair used to just drive me crazy. It's like those are the little things. Sitting on the toilet, all of these freedoms are restored, which for me, I resonate with what you're saying. New lease on life. I'm so grateful just to go walk, to do anything I have now, and then also be able to push it. I've done
Right.
some fun efforts. Running a half marathon, ran a mile before the end of last year, like 4:49. Like really pushing
Yeah.
some hard efforts when I couldn't walk. Before. So I resonate with that.
That's awesome. And the fact that you could say that type of stuff just makes it that much sweeter. Like
Yeah,
I'd love to
absolutely.
start pushing for some like longer endurance events and
Yeah,
stuff of that nature to kind of get it on my belt as well. So
for sure. Awesome, man. Yeah. Well, any big goals moving forward? I know we'll wrap up, but anything else that's kind of on your mind or?
um, I don't know. Maybe I'll run a marathon this year.
Perfect, man. Zach, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Anytime.
All right.
Really
All
appreciate
right.
it.